there guys, it's Brenda from Stellar Evolution Designs here today. Talk you through a little bit of how I put together, string up a ball jointed doll. So I've printed out some resin Roboticas, and that's what I've got here. Of course, I apparently can't string a doll and talk at the same time, so I actually did a little video putting her together and then doing this lovely little voiceover here for you. So I like to start with the bust and the head portion first. So that's what I'm doing here. Now, she is quite tiny, about 20 centimeters tall, and that makes for some tight little corners with little elastics. So you do want to use some good lighting, and they're helpful teeny tiny tweezers. I believe I'm up in Canada, so we picked those up at Princess Auto. It's a good little tool store. Of course, any hobby store would also have those on hand for you. I do not have the most steady hands, so even the more clumsy of us can put this together. If I can put it together, you can definitely put her together. I do like to work on kind of a padded surface so that if you happen to drop a piece, you won't break it. There's something there to cushion the fall. But we've looped it over the top of the neck, and then bringing it down, there's a bar in the bust area of the doll. Now I see that it's gone behind that bar, so I've got to use those tweezers again to pull one of them towards the front so we can secure that. You do want to make it fairly tight. The elastics will stretch over time, so you do want to think of that. You don't want a kind of loose ragdoll, floppy doll. So you do pull them quite tight, and you do give a couple good snug pulls as well. And you can tie it in 2 double knots or 3. Some people have a preference to always do a certain number. I did 3 for her, I think, on each joint or set of joints. And we're using a very tiny elastic, which I picked up at just local fabric store. And because I'm stringing together so many little dolls, I picked up the whole roll. So now I'm cutting the lengths of cord for the arms. There we are, 1.3 millimeters elastic cord. So yeah, for the arms, we're going to just use one piece of cord to string all the way through the left side and all the way through the right side, and then bring that cord back to the center. Now, if you missed it, we are getting to the hands part here, and I did use, we did refigure a little bit to print in the resin printer, the hands portion, so they were more accurate to a ball jointed doll. And we do slip a little pin, which is literally from a pin, um, into the wrist joint, the ball portion. And that hooks around the elastic, and that does give us a little friction fit, so you don't have to put any glue or anything onto it. So I just use my little wire cutters there from your jewelry set, and it is a bit of work, I will admit, to cutting out a few frustrating moments of me trying to fit that in there with the elastic. But you take your time and be very gentle with the hands, of course. They are the most delicate piece of Robotica. So we do want to kind of be able to get the elastic in and around the pin portion that's going to be located in that wrist joint. And once it's located in there and we've strung her arms together, that pin will not fall out. It's kept in there by the tension from the elastic, so you don't have to worry about it falling out. The one, I guess, con side or downside would be that it's not easy to change hands. But currently she only has one iteration of hands. They're just kind of some nice flat outstretched hands. Now again, you do have to play a little bit with the tensions of the elastics. You do have to adjust the arms slightly and the pieces to try and get them all in place. And make sure that they're all aligned as you're increasing the tension on the joints and increasing the tension on the elastic. So you may have to play with that a little bit, and it's always better to cut your elastics a little longer than you'll need rather than having them too short. So don't be worried to have slightly longer elastics than you require. Once you get it all the way around and through and are feeding it back into the arm and into the shoulder joint and pulling it out with the tweezers, again, your best friend in there. As you'll see, me work to get it out of there. Then you're going to work on the other side the same way. And then sometimes it just works out super well. One pull is all you need, and let the tweezers get it out. So again, here you want to make sure joints are all in the correct directions. They're all lining up. Again, being aware and cautious with the tips of the fingers and the hands. You don't want to apply pressure to those first when you're moving the doll. It's always the wrists and the arm joints first, and then holding kind of the palm of the hands if you want to move them. And then kind of stretching those arms out, making sure that you're pulling on each string individually, and then kind of pulling them together to gather them and apply that pressure and tension to the joints. Now here I'm using the forceps, so those are also your friend when you have ball jointed dolls. Again, hardware stores, hobby stores have them. They keep the tension for me, so I don't have to use like my mouth or a foot or some toes as you feel you might, especially with larger dolls. And then just tying it around. Again, I think I do 3 times, maybe even 4. So now Robotica is half built. There she is. She has arms, can do some signaling for us, and is half a body. So she does hold her shape and positions quite well. The resin does have a nice, it's smooth, but has a nice bit of friction. She is double jointed in those elbow joints as well. So it's really great. She has a lot of different positions she can move herself into. Okay, so we've got the legs all laid out now, and I'm cutting 2 pieces of cording, one for each leg. Now, I didn't in this method here, but I do find as I strung the next 3, it easier to actually put those elastics in first before you even put the head or arms in. Just so you can get them over that bar more easily. And you'll see why. I'm not sure how much time I spent. I guess I could count seconds here recording this. But the first one looks so easy when I put that in. The second one took longer to get it up over that bar. There is not a lot of room in there to speak of. So not a lot of real estate for all of those little elastic cords to go over the bar. So the tweezers are super helpful because, again, you could use a wire. It's hard to make it curve around that little loop. And without the tweezers, I would have never got it. So they are your friend. But yeah, if you do it from the start, feeding the elastics in first, much more helpful. And also if you mark one of the elastics with like a little sharpie at the end or at both ends, then you'll know what's the left leg and the right leg. So that is also a helpful little tip you won't see in the video, but here in the commentary. So I would advise doing those 2 things as opposed to what exactly you see here. But you could do this here too, and it will get the job done. So yeah, we will, like I said, there was a lot of me searching and digging and searching and digging. And because I have some little lovely vision issues, I'm like, okay, this needs to get closer to my face. So eventually success happens and out it comes. So there we are. We have 1 set of elastics for each leg. And I cut these very long. Obviously, her legs are not that long. But like I said, the longer, the better. If you come up short, it's not good. You're going to have troubles. Placing all the pieces down one of the elastics. And I kind of shorten up one side and lengthen the other because you're going to end up wanting to tie the elastic in the hip joint. and it's that way the knot kind of gets better hidden up into there. And we'll see where I tie it as well. Now I usually like to do the hip with a little curvy part, smiley part facing to the outside there. I tried to display that for you guys. It wasn't clear in the other Robotica video I had watched all that well. I try to give you a little look at the placement of her armor as well on the leg. And here, the smallest, thinnest, hardest to get through hole is the knee joint. Similar to the elbow joint on the arm, that one's the tricky one to get through as well. And here is the part that isn't like a normal ball joint doll, is the leg joint of Robotica. So it just stops at the knee. It doesn't go all the way down to the foot. So yes, the Robotica feet are just as they are. They don't come off. They aren't shoes. Now, the fun comes into play. So you may have to trim off the end of the elastic that gets a little frayed and roughed up. I try and pull on the elastics, though watch out, you don't want to be putting pressure on the very sharp, thin part of the knee too much. It could be slightly fragile, especially the joint parts there. But what you're trying to do is reduce as much volume of elastic that's in there as possible, and trying to reduce as much frayed elastic as possible to get it through. And it's really only got to go through like the teeniest little bit of a hole, and it's not very long either. So just the right way, it will get through there. Never fear, you can do it. And I love how I just cut that there, because there was probably not curse words, but a few moments of me just wiggling it in and trying to get it through. It does get through, and a pin is your friend as well. You can grab those little corded elastics at the end and help them kind of just encourage their way through with some like nice deep breaths and relaxing thoughts that it's going to come through. So yeah, you're able to grab a little bit at that end there, and it does come on through. I know at first I thought I would be able to use some thicker elastic, but because those joints, pardon me, in relation to all the others are just so small at this scale, which is like 1/9 scale, there's just no way you could get any bigger elastic through this body when it comes to those joints. So there, we get our knee joint onto the leg joint onto the knee joint, and we're going to go up through the thigh, which is definitely has room to spare now that you've got it through that knee joint. And here's the part where you could possibly tie it between the thigh and the lower hip area, let's call it. And I think this is what I show here. Now, this is a possible and viable place to tie it. Maybe even what I see in some of the other videos as well. But there is a downside, just that the top of the thigh there is a very thin place on some of the, or a thinner place than the top part of the hip. So on the second thigh, you'll see that I actually tie it up in the top part of the hip. So I want to give you both views, although, yeah, in the camera frame, Brenda, as a demonstration purpose. Yes, you got to work at it a little bit and just check the tensions and straighten out the legs, making sure all the body parts are in their place. As close to where they should be as possible, and check the tension throughout the body on the leg. If it comes out that far, it still needs some more tightening to do, because you will want your doll to be able to stand up by herself and not just flop down. And it will feel quite tight at the start. All right, success. Now that we've got the legs tied on, we straighten her out, adjust those joints, swivel them into the right rotations, and start admiring our little robot that we've put together. Now, she will come with eyes. Painted ones will have finished eyes that have epoxy on them and paint. Ones that aren't painted are left up to you to finish. So you get to decide what color her eyes will be, what color her armor will be. And yeah, will she have glowing pink lines coming out of her body? Will she be all black suited and some sort of assassin? You get to tell her story. So here, she does a little wave goodbye. She's adorable because she gets to curl up in your hand. And yeah, she's got little rotation in the hip joints, so that gives her a nice seated position. Again, double jointed in those knees. So really tons of possibilities for posing and playing with. And she's small enough that she can fit into some monster high clothes. So you can make different clothing models. If she needs to have a human disguise while she's out amongst some of them. But yeah, thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoy.